Let's do a little intro. You know, it's funny, I use a lot of Carolyn Mace to explain concepts because she really
She's
articulates.
great. I
Doesn't
love
she
Caroline.
articulate in
She's one of my oldest buddies.
Yeah, she reminds me so much of you. You're two like both the same. But she just can nail the sentence in a way that you know?
And Joe Dispenza
Yeah.
too. They're really.
Really. What time do we have in the back? All right, let's start getting people back in. All right, we'll start gathering the group back in. Anthony, could you get people back in? Thank you. Let's all get back in, everyone. Let's get back in our seats for a fabulous treat. And if everyone could make sure your phones are on silent, that would be fantastic. All right. Anybody else out there? A couple of stragglers? All right. Okay, Stacy, there's a few people still going to straggle in, so you could just hang right there. That'll be great, okay? All right, we need to stay on time, so here we go. I am so excited about our next guest. She is a best-selling author and Harvard-trained cell biologist. She's going to be bringing her unique blend of science and spirituality to us this morning. She is a world-renowned expert in the mind-body connection, spiritual growth, and empowered self-care. She's a licensed psychologist and Harvard-trained cell biologist. She synthesizes cutting-edge technology with deep humanity. She's a New York Times best-selling author of 17 books and numerous audio programs for meditation and stress management. Her work has appeared on numerous peer-reviewed scientific journals, as well as the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, public television, and hundreds of websites. Her warmth and credibility, plus her lively sense of humor, make her one of the most popular and sought-after speakers in the field of health, healing, and spirituality. She's the president of the Mind Body Health Sciences, LLC, and she lives in the enchanted mountains of Santa Fe, New Mexico, with her husband, Gordon, and their 2 doggies. Please welcome, back by popular demand, Dr. Joan Boysenko.
Hi. Oh gosh, thank you, sweetheart. Isn't she wonderful? I can't believe it. It's like, what good fortune I've had to be able to come and be with you last year and this year. And just, it feels like a party to me to see all these people with so much love coming together and doing this. So thank you. So I was thrilled when Veronica said she wanted to do this session on the new science of health and healing, because that's something that I've been fascinated with all my life. And those of you who were here last year know that my original interest in health and healing came from the fact that I had a very profound mental illness as a 10-year-old child. And there wasn't anything that psychiatry could do with it. I had a terrible obsessive-compulsive disorder, and I couldn't go to school. I had so many rituals to repeat because I was afraid if I didn't do it, my parents and my brother would die. So I won't go into it, other than to say, at a certain point, I had an intuition and was sitting in my room so frightened. And it was like a little question in my mind. And I said, when have I ever felt peaceful? Can I bring back that sense of peacefulness? And I'd gone to a wonderful girls' camp for a couple of years. I was only 10, but I had gone there when I was 8, when I was 9, and I couldn't wait for summer till I could go again. And it was a Jewish girls' camp. And on the Sabbath, we would sit together in a pine grove. You could hear, the water from the lake. You could smell the smells. You could feel the earth underneath you. Those beautiful summer smells. And then there was the singing. And I do believe that chanting raises your vibration, that music is an intrinsic part of healing, that you cannot think yourself well because you get stuck in the loop of thoughts. But if you can get into that vibration. So there I was, 10 years old, and my intuition was, when have you been peaceful? And I started to sing the songs that we sang together. And, my voice I'm going to be 80 in October. It's great when you live long enough to get a round of applause just because you're not dead. So my voice is not great, but the song was welcoming peace. The Sabbath, no matter what your religion, is a time to be present. It's a time to let go of the thoughts, the worries, the stuff that you do every day, and simply to be peaceful. So that song was, "Come, O Sabbath day, and bring peace and healing on thy wing, and to every troubled breast speak of thy divine behest. Thou shalt rest, thou shalt rest." And when I sang that song, not only did it bring back, the whole set and setting and scene, but it brought back some deep remembrance of who I really was. And there was an intuition that accompanied that. And the intuition was this, that the next time you feel afraid, which for me was like 20 times a day, instead of immediately doing the rituals you do to stay safe, simply sing that song and bring back that sense of, presence was not a word I knew at 10, but bring back that sense of peace. And I did. And in a period of 3 or 4 days, the whole psychotic episode simply dissipated. And that left me with a lifelong interest in healing and in the human mind. And anyhow, so that's my story. And it has led me to what my life purpose has been. And that is to help people clear the blocks to love's presence. Because, there's really nothing in the end that we have to learn, because your soul is always pure. It's always in alignment with something greater. And so we have to take away the blocks to love's presence. And that's what I'm here to do. So I'm going to put on my scientist hat my psychologist hat, my mystic hat, and my, like, I'm here as, here as a friend. And I want to tell you that it's just human to get all excited about this kind of thing and to have moments of knowing. And then, of course, we go back to our old way of being, and the fear happens, and our historical stories start in again, and we have plenty of room to practice. I always like to remind people we all kind of exist on a spectrum from our most constricted, frightened self to our most expansive self. And that always helps me because I know if I've fallen into my constricted self, I can do something about it. I can go take a walk. I can take a couple of deep breaths. I can tell myself, Joan, you're telling yourself an old story. Just stop at the break. I was reminiscing with my husband Gordon about this great movie by Mel Brooks, High Anxiety. Anybody remember that movie? It was so funny because he's the psychiatrist and a patient comes who has an obsessive disorder. The patient rips paper, rips paper, rips paper. And Mel Brooks just look at him and he says, "Stop ripping paper." And the patient goes, "Why didn't anyone ever tell me that?" And so that's what we have to do, literally. I have to say, Veronica said it so clearly. You tell yourself, stop, but you have to have enough awareness to realize, wait, I'm stuck. I've been in this place before. It's my historical story, fear, etc. But you do that. You take those few breaths. And what I like to do is remember a moment when I did feel peaceful. And that helps me to remember what my purpose is and my greatest vision for being a human being and being on this earth walk. So we got a lot of territory to cover. And this, my goodness, this must have been about 11 years ago, because I had just moved into the house that you see there. I was interviewed for a documentary called Heal, which was you can probably get it online. But one of the things that I did, I think I started my talk by saying, can you imagine going into your kitchen, going into the refrigerator, taking out a lemon, feeling the heaviness of that juicy, wonderful lemon in your hand, scratching the surface, giving it a sniff, putting it on the cutting board, seeing, oh, how the juices well up, and then licking the lemon. And did anybody do that? Did you start to salivate? It's the thoughts in your mind, obviously, change your body. And you know, when I started to work in the mind-body field, which was, I hate to say this, in the 1960s, in the 1960s, physicians were saying, what is this mind-body thing? The mind doesn't affect the body. And I remember I was feeling very fresh, and I said to a physician colleague of mine, if the mind doesn't affect the body, why do you like to read Playboy magazine? So, all right. So we have a lot of imaginings that affect our body. And what Veronica was saying is so true. 90% of what takes people to the doctor is stress-related illness. All right, let's see. Oh, I'm going backwards. will go forwards. So, the extraordinary body-mind. Between junior and senior years at college, I got a slot on a National Science Foundation fellowship to explore learning in the octopus. And I've been so excited because now we have all these documentaries, My Octopus Teacher, and this and that, because people are fascinated. Why is the octopus so smart and able to camouflage itself, get away from danger, and really perform complex learning things? I've always been fascinated by them because they're such a good example of what I think of as the mind-body connection, which is really the emotion-body connection. It was great because you just heard about that. It's not so much a thought, but the thoughts trigger an emotion, and the emotions release molecules in the body. There's a wonderful book called Molecules of Emotion that was written by the late Candace Pert. And she was, oh my God, what an amazing scientist she was. She discovered the endorphins, the body's own, endogenous opiates. Anything that affects us, a pharmaceutical from the outside, is because we make the same thing inside. And we create our own opiates when we're happy. That's why they work. But molecules of emotion is what you see in the octopus. It has fear, and the beautiful, beautiful octopus that's floating through the water, they have such beautiful, smooth skin, suddenly crinkles up, turns bright red, forms all these spikes, and matches then, it matches its emotion. Now it's in the fight or flight response. And if you come closer to an octopus when it's like that, it shoots out ink and then disappears. So I was in Naples, Italy, and my experimental subjects were in a big aquarium. I'd take them out, give them learning tasks, but I would sit by the aquarium for hours and just watch the different moods of the octopus, because the whole animal changes as its emotion changes. And so do we, where, we're just not as, shall I say, as vivid as an octopus. So, whatever our mind perceives, the body believes. And this is what we're going to be talking about, how it is that our beliefs affect us and affect our bodies. And neuroscientists agree on this, that the brain creates our own reality almost out of thin air. It makes an educated guess about what is happening based on, first of all, our senses, like what do we see, what do we hear, what do we smell, what do we touch, what do we feel in our gut. And then our survival instincts. That's the main thing. That's what I learned from the octopus. In the end, emotions are all about survival. And human beings have an inborn negativity bias because if, for example, if we're walking in the woods and you see something long and squiggly, and you think to yourself, that could be a snake, suddenly you're afraid, but you move off and you avoid being bitten, but often it's usually just something like a stick. So you have to realize that fear has a role, and it comes, but when the threat is gone, the problem is we don't generally let it go. So mostly we're going to talk about how to let things go so that our survival instincts don't hang on and create problems in our body. Then, of course, we have our beliefs and our past experience, our narrative framework. Like, for example, I'm going to start, ever have a dog, a rescue dog, and the dog was beaten by someone. And sometimes that was a woman, sometimes it was a man, and whatever sex. If the dog sees somebody of that sex, the dog withdraws and has a fight or flight response. And we all do that. Our whole body mind is conditioned so that without even thinking about what it is that is frightening us at a subconscious level, we have fear. And beliefs and past experiences are there, and they form our narrative framework, and that is the story that we tell ourselves about the world and the reality that we create. So, what do we do about this? First of all, I want to take you on what I hope will be a fun and informative kind of tour of our beliefs and how they affect mind, body, and spirit. So first of all, there's the wonderful placebo effect. You know, if you take a sugar pill and you think it's going to help you, over 60% of the time, you will get a response, and that's just your belief. And we've known that for a long time. And here's a really graphic example, because during World War II, this guy, Henry Beecher, was a physician, and he ran out of morphine in a field hospital. And what do? Here are these like terribly wounded young men. And he said, we have no morphine to give them, so we're just going to pretend we'll give them a shot of saline. And about half of them actually had pain relief from really intense pain. So that's really powerful to think about. When Beecher went home, he worked at the Mass General Hospital in Boston. He did a study, and he found out that wounded soldiers actually asked for fewer painkillers than civilians with comparable injuries. Like, 25% of soldiers would ask for pain reliever for a certain kind of wound, but 80% of civilians would. And it was the mindset. For a soldier, a wound brought up a belief system like, oh my God, this is fantastic. I'm wounded. I'm getting off the front. I'm going home. But for a civilian with the same wound, you're thinking stuff like, I'm missing work. Maybe I'll get fired. My finances are going down the drain. And it was the effect of the meaning of the wound that made the difference to the body. Back in 1978, due in fact to the work of Candace Pert, that we all have our own endogenous opiates, it was found that naloxone, which blocks the effects of opiates, blocked the placebo effect because our beliefs were creating the release of opiates in our own bodies. So, if positive things change the body, what about our negative beliefs? So that's called the nocebo effect. So there have been a whole bunch of studies on this. This is one, like half of the men who were taking a particular drug for prostate issues were told, this drug can create erectile dysfunction. And 44% of the men who were told that developed ED, compared with only 15% of the men who were not told that. So that's pretty big. So lists of medication side effects, what's on the label, may be instructive, but they can also cause harm. Gordy and I, oh God, this must have been maybe a year and a half ago, we were watching the TV and an ad came up for a diabetes drug, which I only saw this ad once and then they changed it. And basically it said if you take this drug, one of the side effects is that your penis could shrivel up and fall off. And I thought, who is going to take that drug? Just like who? And so now they've completely changed their tune. They talk about, well, you could get an infection in your peritoneum. So read the fine print on that. But what's on a label can actually cause that thing to happen. Don't you think that's fascinating? So when I first went to work with Herbert Benson in Boston, Benson was the guy who coined the term relaxation response, wrote a book of that title that was a major bestseller, showing that meditation could deliver our body to that rest and reflect response, bringing the alpha waves, bringing the gamma waves. He was fascinated with a phenomenon called pointing the bone, which came from a particular Aboriginal culture. And that was cursing when, the medicine man of the tribe would curse you because you had done something bad. They would leave on your bedding a bone pointed in a particular direction. And there are lots of anecdotes that once somebody was cursed by the pointing of the bone, they would actually die. So the belief in cursing is, another thing. And I've had a lot of people in my life, a lot of patients coming through that in some way believed they were cursed by their birth, cursed by their karma, cursed by whatever. So it is so important, I think, for us all to realize every breath we take is sacred. It's holy. It's coming directly from the source. It's pure. Life is breathed into us. We're on an earth walk where we're learning to have more love, where we're learning to use our powers, where somehow, however you think of that divinity, it comes into us and we learn to reflect that goodness out to other people. We're not cursed, we're blessed. The Tibetan Buddhists, I've had the joy of spending quite a bit of time with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and other Buddhist monks. And their belief is all about we're here to learn compassion. That's what this life journey is all about. And by the way, I want to say this about compassion and forgiveness. Do you know how the Buddha died? Anybody? The Buddha died from food poisoning. And people in his circle were furious at the cook. It's like, oh my God, you poisoned our teacher. You poisoned the Buddha. And the Buddha said, please bring the cook to me. And he said to the cook, I want to thank you. I have fulfilled my purpose on this earth and I needed a way to leave. Thank you for giving it to me. So that, that's also a great story. We all will have to go from something. And hopefully we have fulfilled our purpose at that time. So we have to mind our story in the meantime, because the stories that we habitually tell ourselves shape the way that we will experience life and how our bodies function. So when we're telling ourselves healthy stories, like, I have a purpose, I am here to grow in love and wisdom and compassion. I'm here to help people do whatever your purpose may be, that story will help us feel empowered and connected, purposeful and resilient. And a good story acknowledges that pain and difficulty are part of the human condition, but we frame them in a way that we realize we need challenges because they are opportunities to grow in wisdom, in compassion, and in being skillful in different ways. So I often have to remind myself of my own real story, what I'm put here to do. And I look back on my life and I think, whoops, I've had an awful lot of opportunities to grow in wisdom. And to think of people who have hurt me, and there have, we've all had that. Nobody goes through life without being hurt by people. To think of them as my teachers, and to think someday in some space that we can't even imagine, I'll meet these people and think they were a member of my soul group, and we had a sacred contract that I would be hurt in exactly the way that was necessary for my own soul to grow and to allow me to work with other people and help other people who'd been in similar situations. And so when you tell yourself a good story, it makes you feel worthy. And that's so important because the wound of unworthiness is the most common human wound, where we think we're just not good enough, that we've done things that are not good, that we're irredeemable. Because when you feel unworthy, it goes back to the survival stuff. You think, I'm not good enough. My tribe will eject me. I'll get put in the wilderness and eaten by a lion or a bear or a wolf. And that brings up that, those yucky survival, panicky feelings. So dealing with the story of unworthiness is probably the most important form of forgiveness. So becoming our best self, we have to engage in this very beautiful but very messy process of being human. And I think, Einstein always talked about having greater and greater circles of compassion grow out from around us. The first is compassion with self, for self, then for the people nearest and closest to us, and then to other people, to the earth, to all that is. So, mindset matters, and we're going to talk a little bit about the psychology of possibility. So, is the glass half empty? I'm going to take this off. I'm taking it off because I think it was somehow interfering with the sound system. Is that better? Can you hear me? No more popping? Okay. So, did you know that your mindset has everything to do with how you age? Here's a study. There's a very cool lady who I know very well. She was actually the first tenured psychologist at Harvard, and Ellen Langer. So Ellen invited men in their 70s and 80s to spend 5 days up in New Hampshire in a building that used to be a monastery. And she set the place up to look exactly like 1959, when these men would have been in their prime. She had cars from 1959. She had DVD players with the movies of the time. They had to bring pictures of themselves, when this was the best time of my life. I was healthy, I was well, I was whatever. And Then she did 2 groups. So one really embodied that sense of being in 1959. They acted as if it was. They discussed the news with each other. They discussed their jobs with each other, their families. And it was like, play acting, visualizing, this is who I am. The other group just reminisced a little. And at the end of the week, both groups had improved in well-being and function, but the first group really visualized themselves at that time much more significantly so. And now here's a quote from Ellen Langer. At the end of the monastery study, I was playing football, touch, but still football with these men, some of whom gave up their canes. It's not our physical state that limits us. It is our mindset about our limits, our perceptions that draws the lines in the sand. So one of Ellen's students, Dr. Aaliyah Crum, did a study about how our mindset actually affects our metabolism, how we eat, how we experience hunger. So here was the setup for her study. She made up a bunch of milkshakes, and on the milkshakes were 380 calories. And here's what she did. One group, the milkshake was labeled indulgence. The label said 620 calories. The other group, second time that people came, the milkshake was labeled sensible, 140 calories. Now it was the same milkshake, just the label was different. Now ghrelin, which is the hormone that makes us hungry, dropped significantly more if people thought the shake that they were drinking was indulgent rather than sensible. And this means that the body's physiological response to the food mirrored their mindset, not the actual nutritional content of the shakes. So what they said is, if you feel like what you're eating is indulgent, you should eat more of that because you will lose weight. So I have my favorite breakfast is actually a very, very high fiber, low carb bread with eggs. I make, French toast out of it, and I put either a tiny bit of maple syrup or I take blueberries, put them in the microwave for 2 minutes, and you get like blueberry mush, which is delicious. There are very few calories in it, but to me it's totally indulgent. And when I eat that, I'm not hungry until dinner. And that's the indulgent mindset. That's the story that I'm telling myself. So metabolism, what she says is if you're eating diet foods, actually you're going to feel deprived and eat more. So how about mind over exercise? So Aaliyah Crum and Ellen Langer did this study together. Their setup was that they recruited 84 women who were room attendants at different hotels, 2 groups. The informed group was told that their work was great exercise, according to the Surgeon General's report on health. And they gave them specific examples, like when you bend, when you squat, when you do this, when you do that. And the other group was not told anything like that. So, in 4 weeks, the exercise behavior of the 2 groups had not changed. However, compared with the control group, the informed group, who thought they were doing great exercise, showed a decrease in weight, blood pressure, body fat, waist to hip ratio, and body mass index. And so, if you do a little bit of exercise around the house, ever since then, I run around, I said, great, vacuuming now, spending now. Everything I do adds to my exercise and to my health. And in a way, isn't that what affirmation is? When you're affirming different things to yourself. I remember years ago, there was a comedian, Steve Behrman, who was alter ego, his humorous self, called himself Swami Beyondananda. And he said, all you have to do is repeat this affirmation. Everything I eat turns to cash. And so he had a lot of great affirmations. But in fact, he was right. So even the way that we view stress makes a difference. Aaliyah Crum went on to do a lot of different studies, but in one of them she showed this. People who believed that stress could be enhancing rather than harmful had lower cortisol spikes. They had greater resilience and performance at tasks and better immunity. So it turns out even stress is not like the uncomplicated enemy. It's the belief about stress that determined whether it was toxic or adaptive. So now, what about the most basic thing, our genetic code? Could it be possible that belief could actually change the genetic code, be a biological signal? And it is. Belief and our perception of what's happening influences gene expression. So lots of studies have showed that practices like meditation and mindfulness. And what is mindfulness? You know, we throw that word around. But mindfulness is simply being present to the moment without judgment. To say to yourself, okay, you know, I'm not judging that I'm doing a bad job, that my client is impossible to please or whatever it is. I'm simply open to this moment without judgment. And then you have greater possibility. You see many more possibilities than you would if you've already made your mind up. So mindfulness is a curious ability to stay present to what is. So that, or even just reframing your story, can shift gene expression. And as we're going to see in a minute, that's related to inflammation, to your ability of cells to repair themselves, to the health of telomeres. And we're going to talk more about what a telomere is in a minute. And all this just means that how we interpret what's going on to us can actually change which of our genes are turned on or turned off moment by moment and thought by thought. This is a big deal because people think, well, oh my God, you know, your genes change, you age, what can be done about this? So there's a great book called Breaking the Age Code, how your beliefs about aging determine how long and how well you live. And Becca Levy, who's at Yale, showed that people with positive self-perceptions of aging, like, I think I'm aging pretty well, actually, for 80. I'm feeling really strong, feeling really good about my life. And so I will live, on average, 7.5 years longer than people who have less positive attitudes about their aging. She also found that positive attitudes about aging reduce the incidence of dementia. Now, this is really important because including in people with a genetic predisposition, you might have heard about something called the ApoE4 gene. And people who have multiple copies of that gene are much more prone to heart disease and dementia. So people in her study who had this gene, during the 4 years of the study, when they were in their 70s and likely to be developing cognitive decline, was reduced by 50%. So I think that is really amazing. People over 70, too, with positive attitudes about aging, were 44% more likely to recover from a severe disability. A brief story. Okay, so in 2017, which was 8 years ago, I was in my early 70s, I found out that I needed both hips replaced. I had a congenital thing with my hips. They were very deep in the sockets, and so I had sort of limited width of being able to take a stride. And finally, that had resulted in arthritic hips. So I thought, well, I've got two hips. Why don't I have them replaced at once? And my surgeon said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then he said, well, maybe I would do it, but you'd have to spend about 10 days in a rehab hospital. And I said, I'm not going to need a rehab hospital. My husband and my friend are going to be there to help me. Just as I was going into surgery, he said, now, you have to reconcile yourself that you're going to have to be in a rehab hospital. And I said, nothing of the sort. I said, I am going to recover as quickly or more than as quickly as people who've only had one hip replaced. And I did. 2 weeks after that surgery, I walked in. All I had was a hiking stick to his office, and the whole staff got up and clapped. And you have to watch out, because there was a slide you showed, Veronica, where you said, don't give somebody else agency over your health. He was a great surgeon. I was so happy to have him, but I wasn't going to let him determine how fast I was going to recover. So that's an important thing. Keep agency. And you do need medical care. I mean, thank God we have medical care. I'm not saying at all that it's either or, but bringing a positive belief system to whatever care you need can make you much more likely to recover. Now there's a lot of talk about the fact of epigenetics can change how your genes show themselves, because your DNA is not your destiny. Time magazine, this must have been at least, 4, 5, 6 years ago, had that on their cover. And your mind can really change your genetic health. So I said that in a little while I'm going to talk more about the telomeres, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the telomeres. So what you see there are 3 chromosomes, and at the end of the blue chromosomes, you've got those tan little end caps, and that's what a telomere is. It's a protective cap at the end of your chromosome. And these are kind of like the plastic tips at the end of shoelaces, which are called aglets, a new vocabulary word, because they keep your DNA from unraveling. So there's an enzyme that you make called telomerase that maintains the length of your telomeres. When your telomeres get short, then the DNA can't be read anymore to produce proteins. And that's what causes aging in large part. And disease is the short telomeres. So you want to make a lot of telomerase, because then your cells are going to be healthier and more youthful. So how do you increase your telomerase? Same things: meditation, mindfulness, yoga, qigong, anti-inflammatory diet. That's what you were talking about, Veronica. That's high in antioxidants and phytochemicals. What's oxidation? It's rust. And basically, rust goes on in your body. If you make too much, if you eat too much sugar, and your cells can't take the sugar into themselves and use them for energy, if sugar's wandering around in your blood, it creates what are called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, and it's literally kind of rusting your tissues and creating inflammation. So that's why we're trying to eat a healthy diet. And phytochemicals, this morning at breakfast, there were all these different fruits and like all the colors of the rainbows, red and blue and yellow. And when you eat the colors of the rainbow, these enzymes in the fruit, in the colors, are helping to keep your cells healthy. Then, of course, in terms of a prescription for healthy genes, relationship, love and kindness toward yourself and others, and stressing less and enjoying more. There was a book years ago, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. So, you really have to do that. Sometimes stuff comes up, and I think to myself, oh my God, look what's happening. And then I say to myself, just how serious is this? Do I actually want to keep thinking about this thing? Is it going to result in a good end, or is it just going to be like stuck in the loop? And if I decide this is not worth going into, you train yourself and just say, okay, not going there. I'm going to go do something else now, not thinking about that anymore. And one of the ways that's best to help yourself do that is go do something that's play, whatever that is. Take a walk in nature, or I've got a lot of means of play. I love to garden. I love to do mosaics. I love to solve puzzles. I love to put things in place. So go do something that's fun for a little while. These are medicines, and they reduce inflammation, and they curtail what's called inflammaging. Just a word about the inflammatory response, and then I'm going to skip some of these slides because I'm not going to have time to finish everything and get us out for lunch and have a little time to meditate. But the inflammatory response in your body is necessary for life. You get a splinter, right, gets all red, gets all pussy. That's the immune system killing off the bacteria. And we need that. Healthy immunity is a good thing. But as we grow older, and literally aging starts almost as soon as we're born, we're aging all of our life. As we grow older, inflammation can get very pesky. It can turn into a chronic condition akin to like embers that are always burning in there. And that slow burn damages our tissues and predisposes us to, the major killers: heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, cognitive decline, and the whole thing. So keeping down your inflammation is the best way to stay healthy. Okay, you have all of these slides, so I'm going to go quickly now. But one of the most important things is to surround yourself with people that you love, that people who make you happy, people who you can say whatever you need to say, who accept you, who don't judge you. And that turns out to be about the most important thing for your health, is social connection. There's a body of research that goes back, oh my God, almost 100 years to show that loneliness is about the worst thing that human beings can suffer. We're social animals. That's how we evolved. We need each other. And I'll let you look at this on your own later. But love affects health. And I thought, let me count the ways. And I came up with 12 ways that love supports the body. So I want to kind of end talking a little bit just about spirituality, because it's the deepest form of love. Love is spirituality. I think the best definition of spirituality is that it's a human capacity to connect with something greater than ourselves, whether that's a sense of the sacred, our own inner wisdom and intuition, love, awe, beauty, or life itself. I mean, my God, it's a miracle. Do you ever stop and think, how could this be? How did we get here? How did something come out of nothing? What a miracle. Because that spirituality, that sense of there's something greater, there's something meaningful, it's a miracle that we're here, that gives us life. It fosters connection. It supports us in resilience, because life is difficult, isn't it? That was the first of Buddha's Four Noble Truths. Life is difficult. There is sickness, there's poverty, there's old age, there's death. How do we make sense of that? So we need to make sense, to live in alignment with what matters most. So this is probably the most quoted quote of Einstein. You see it everywhere, and it's so beautiful. A human being is a part of the whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Now that's a prescription for being fully human, for living fuller human. I'm going to skip these last things about the holographic universe. You can read them, and then I'm sure that Sonia and Cindy will talk a little bit about this, that everything is energy, that in quantum experiments, the very act of observing can change the outcome. Isn't that interesting? This suggests that our intention and awareness, which are central to energy healing, may influence physical states. So they'll talk about that, because I want to do a brief meditation and have a little time with you. So the meditation that I'm going to lead you through, let's see if I can put this on, is in your packet. Aren't your packets beautiful, by the way? I have to go down and get a copy of that meditation, because I want it to be exactly as it is, so you can hear me do it and then do it for yourself. Okay. Here it is. The meditation I've prepared for you is called The Healing Within. So, did y'all find it? So you know where to find it later? So if you found it, And if you didn't find it, put it down, and we're going to get into our meditative positions. I gave a workshop once, and I said, get into position. And in a moment, I'll help you do that. And after the meditation, someone thought I was saying, get your inner physician, and it's the same thing. So I'm going to sit and get myself into position. And your position is be noble. You are a noble being. You are the temple of spirit. Spirit's within you. It comes in with every breath. So get yourself to feel noble. Sit up, and now let your shoulders just roll down and back, and feel yourself stable. Squirm around until you really feel stable. Feel your feet on the floor, and let your eyes close. And take a couple of big letting go breaths. You've had a lot of information this morning. It took quite a bit to just get here. And now we're just going to let yourself arrive. Feeling your breath. The universe is breathing you. So feel the breath come in and fill you. And just feel the way that it turns around and you let it go. How your body rises a little bit as the breath comes in and relaxes and lets go as the breath moves out. And now just take another comfortable breath. Just letting the breath move all by itself. And let that breath guide you inward. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw release. And feel your hands just resting gently in your lap. And feel the ground beneath you. Steady, holding, always there. You are supported. Now turn your attention inward to the quiet intelligence of your body. This body that breathes without being asked. This beautiful body that mends wounds. This body that digests and eliminates sorrow. This beautiful body that stores wisdom in the very muscles of your becoming, of your evolution into your best self. Now say gently to yourself, I trust the healing within me. Again, I trust the healing within me. Repeat it. I trust the healing within me. Letting the words settle like a cup of warm tea in your heart. Now bring to mind a time when you felt whole or deeply loved. I remember the time sitting in the pine grove on the Sabbath, hearing the chanting. I remember falling in love with Gordon, looking deeply into his eyes and feeling so seen. Can you remember a time, maybe a walk in nature, feeling so present, a moment of awe at a sunset? Let a memory arise, not in your mind alone, but in your very tissues, in your cells. We experience all the sensations, the smells, the touch, the taste. Feel the imprint of peace as if it is happening right now. Because to your body, belief is biology. What you imagine, you become. Now offer this to yourself. May my thoughts be kind. May my stories be wise. May my spirit be resilient. May my healing be nourished by love. And now extend this wish for love and healing to someone that you care for, to someone who may be struggling, to everyone, everywhere. Let's send them these blessings. May all beings remember their wholeness. May healing come with mercy and meaning. May peace take root in the body and bloom in the soul. Breathe that in. May peace take root in your body. May peace bloom within your soul. Breathe in peace. Breathe out all the stories you're finished with. Breathe in love and presence. And now, let's return gently to the room by noticing your feet on the floor, your hands resting in your lap. The sense of all these fellow travelers around you. And when you're ready, gently return, carrying the quiet knowing that healing is not only possible, it is already beginning. When you're ready, open your eyes. right, everybody. We're back, right? Who knows? Who knows the humorist Loretta LaRoche? Have you ever heard of her work? She wrote and starred in 8 PBS specials. And Loretta has this wonderful thing. She said, in the morning, when you wake up, if you're alone, you say this to yourself. If you're with a pet, say it to your dog or cat. If you're with a partner, say it to your partner. Say, ta-da, I'm back. So it is amazing. It's a gift every day, a new gift of life. So anybody have anything you want to say? Any comments or questions? Yes. I'm coming close so I can hear you.
Is there audio or video of that meditation?
Well, there is audio and video that Veronica's team has just recorded, so I don't know if you can make that available to people somehow. Okay. So yes. So you like the meditation? All right. Okay. Anybody else? Questions? Comments? Thank you. Okay, well, thanks to all of you. I was saying to Yvonne yesterday that when a speaker speaks, it's largely the audience, your intention and your attention, your care and your listening that helps the speaker move out of the way a little bit and helps something larger come through. So it's, even if you're quiet, it's a dialogue. And so I want to thank you for the quality of your presence and your kindness and your love. I love being here. So thanks a lot, and I'll be around. Okay. Okay. Thanks.